Hey everyone, this is Christine, the creator, host, producer, everythinger of Flourish and Foreign, the podcast that elevates and affirms the voices and stories of Black women living and thriving abroad. Hi everyone. I am running late today. We were supposed to start 5 minutes ago, but my whole live setup just fell apart. It fell apart like as soon as it was like here 3:58. It just didn't want to work, and I was just like, not today, not today. But we are going to have the live today. We're going to be speaking with Zoe Smith. We're going to be talking with her about conscious relocation. We're going to be talking about moving to the Caribbean. We're going to be talking about her origin story, her businesses that she has. And we're just going to be talking about, some of the recent visas that have been made available in the Caribbean, what the process is to get those, and everything like that. So, as I wait for her to join us here, let me shout out everyone who's here. Hey, BK Duchess. Well, now they're going fast. Okay. The Everyday Catwalk. Hello. Breath of Fresh Air. Hey. What does that say? Fat Nice One, hello. Hawa, hello. Adrian is Rich, hey. That's my mom. Hi, Mom. But right now we're just waiting for Zoe to enter so that we can start the live. But as we're waiting for her to join, let me talk about a couple things that will be happening with the podcast. So the podcast is fully booked for the rest of the year going into 2021. So you guys can definitely be sure to catch a new episode. Oh, hey, Felina. Hi. Felina has a really great podcast as well. If y'all don't know, Black Broads Abroad is a really great podcast. So check that out. But with Flourish and Foreign, we have all of our guests. We have plenty of stories to go into 2021, which is amazing, which is great. And we as in me, are going to be launching a YouTube channel and a blog and doing some really cool different things. So just be on the lookout for that. Let me see if Zoe is in the chat yet. Hey, Zoe, if you can join the chat so we can get started, that would be wonderful. Let us see. Let me see if I can, let's see. Message Zoe. Let's see. All right. If you have any questions about, here she is. Okay, never mind. Here is Zoe. Hey, Zoe. If you could just request to enter the IG live, and then we can go ahead and get started. And if you guys have any questions about the podcast, maybe an episode that you've heard, or perhaps any other kind of questions about the podcast process, stuff like that, moving abroad, definitely leave it in the comments below or in the question section. And if you have questions about to the Caribbean, go ahead, because we're going to be talking about that the entire hour. I have my notes here.
Hey, love.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. The magic of the internet.
I know. I was telling everyone, I was apologizing for being tardy. I had my whole little setup with my little thing, and then it fell apart. It like catapulted the phone across the way. It was ridiculous. And then I was struggling. And so now I'm just going to hold the phone for the entire conversation. It's going to be good. It's going to be great.
I would never have guessed it. Well, it's amazing and super slick.
Okay, so hello everyone. We have Zoe Smith here joining us for the hour. We are going to have such an amazing conversation. Zoe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, where to start? My name's Zoe Smith. I have just turned 40, so I'm feeling very old and very substantial in the world. I am of British and Grenadian descent. I was born in London, but my parents are from the Caribbean, so from Grenada, so the Caribbean feels like a really strong part of my identity. I'm a mum of three young kids, and I have experience of living in different parts of the world. So yeah, that's kind of the main reason why connecting with someone like you is just super interesting to me at the moment.
So tell us about the places that you've lived.
Okay, so I studied Italian at university. Well, I started off studying Italian at university. That's a short story. And I always wanted to live in Italy. So when I finished studying university, I was working for a newspaper because journalism is kind of what I do. And I went to an art gallery and was chatting to this girl, and she was like, "Oh, my boyfriend is starting a company in Italy, in Milan, and he really wants someone who can speak Italian. Why don't you go work for him?" And I was like, why not? You know, why not just like move country and go take a job somewhere else? So that's what I did at the age of 24. I moved to Milan and worked for a really amazing company called Yux.com. They now own Net-a-Porter, which is like a super cool luxury fashion retailer. And yeah, I mean, I've been traveling to Italy for like a really long time. I was going out with an Italian guy before that. So I knew the country really well. I'd studied at university there as well. But yeah, the experience of living and working in Milan was like, it was amazing, but it was a lot. It was a lot.
Tell us,
So
tell
yeah,
us,
that's, uh-huh.
tell us a little bit more. Like, why was it a lot? I've been to Milan. I've been all over Italy. I definitely have to say I prefer southern Italy than northern Italy. No shade to anyone who is northern Italian
Yeah.
watching or has a preference, but how was that experience for you as, a Black British woman?
Yeah. So like, whereabouts in southern Italy have you been to? Where are your top places?
Well, I had a friend who lives in Sicily and he lives in
Ah,
Ragusa, so I'm more comfortable in Sicily and Catania and things like that. Yeah.
really buzz out. Nice, nice. So yeah, like Milan has a really bad rep, and I always feel like I have to defend it because it's not as bad as people say it is. But um, it's just so different. The guy that I used to go out with, he was from Vicenza, which is also in the north, in the Veneto region. But Milan is like hard. It's like the least Italian city of all Italian cities. It's like very much work for focused. The main industries of finance and fashion. So there's a lot of superficiality, which I guess I shouldn't have been surprised at, but it was still very different to that really like heart centered, family centered, nature connected experience of Italy that I'd had before then. So prior to that, I'd spent time in the Veneto region. Sorry. I went to the Università per Stranieri in Umbria, in Perugia, which is just, you're just like walking in the mountains and sailing in boats. And yeah, Milan was different. It was lovely. And like as a 24-year-old to be like going to fashion shows and like hanging out in cool spaces, it was amazing. But yeah, it wasn't the version of Italy that I had imagined for myself. And I was listening to an interview that one of your other ladies did who'd spent time also in the Veneto region. I remember her saying that the pace of work was very much more relaxed. But there, I was working like 15-hour days. It
Oh
was
my
just,
goodness.
yeah, it was a lot. And I think it's one thing Milan, the other thing working for like a really high tech startup. It
Mm.
was, yeah, it was intense.
So
Um,
you've also lived in Ibiza. So tell us about that too.
yeah, yeah. So Ibiza was fun, but I moved to Ibiza when I was 30. And I moved there because of my partner's work, or my children's dad's work. So he manages DJs, and a lot of his DJs had residencies in Ibiza. So we moved out there for the first time in 2011 when my son was just 7 months old. Um, so that was a pretty unique experience moving with a toddler. But I love Ibiza. It's a fun destination, but it also has a really deeply spiritual side, which for me was the thing that saved me because I think
Mm.
it's really different when you move as someone's plus one. Like when you're moving for your own reasons, like you have the space to kind of form your identity. But for me, like being someone's partner and being someone's mum. It was really tricky when I was like out at dinner and people would be talking about the industry and they'll be like, so what do you do? And I'll be like, I don't know, I change nappies. Like, you know, I pretty much lost my sense of identity in an entirely new destination, and having a chance to kind of get away from the clubs, get away from the beaches, and just go off into the mountains and hang out with hippies and do lots of yoga and meditation was something that I just absolutely loved. And the parties was fun, like, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's a really magical space. And Formentera is an island just off the coast of Ibiza. And that was like my sanctuary, really, my getaway place to just chill. I worked for a bit out there as well. I worked for one of the magazines and also one of the clubs. And I don't know if you have it in Barcelona, but that thing of the siesta, it's just like, it's just the best. Like, yeah, it's just, ah, I would just leave.
See, I think it's interesting that you say that it was the best because when I first moved to Spain, I was just like, or when I was studying abroad in Spain, I was just like, what do you mean? You're just closed in the middle of the day. And then you say you're gonna be back by 5. That might actually be 7 or
Yeah.
not. Like what? For me,
Oh
it
my
threw
God.
me a loop. Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, it's annoying when you want to go to the shops and everything's closed for 3 hours. But if you're the one working, you get to like chill and go home and get lunch. It's that I do miss that. Even just talking about it, I'm like, I need that in my life. Yeah.
So let's talk about. I have my notes here, and of course, I don't have my glasses on because I'm trying to be cool today, which is not helpful. Is that
Yeah, I
helpful?
can't see either. I've got like this ring light that makes me blind. And someone's asked a question that I can't see. So between the two of us, we'll get to it.
Well, we will get to it. Okay, so tell us about the Exis Collective. Yeah, let's start there. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so like the Exodus Collective is something that's been on my mind for like a number of years, just because I spend so much time going back and forth between the UK and the Caribbean because I have a business there. I I just wanted to find a way to kind of share the knowledge and experience that I've gained with other folks who are looking to do something similar. But because content is my background, I have a real challenge in following the advice I give to other people. So it's literally just been in my mind, like, yeah, I should do this, I should do that. Um, and funnily enough, earlier this year, a friend of mine who is from the US but moved to Grenada 5 years ago, um, got in touch with me and said, listen, like, I really have this urge to share my skills that I've gained as a healer with folks who are looking to move to the Caribbean. Do you have any idea of any organizations that exist like that I can tap into? And I was like, no, but funnily enough, I've been thinking about doing something similar for a long while. So why don't we join forces and create a space where folks who are looking to move can access that sort of information? Because I don't know about you, and maybe you seem really settled in Spain, so you never do that kind of YouTube, just like fantasizing about foreign destinations thing. But for me, like, I've lost so many hours just like looking at all the amazing stuff going on in West Africa and like these like super hot farmers in Ghana. I'm like, oh, I can move there and marry him. But aside from like, yeah, that bit, there's so much on West Africa, which for understandable reason, it's like a vast region, vast countries, and there's lots of opportunity. But to have that sort of setup for the Caribbean was something that seemed to me like a no-brainer. So what we started doing is just storytelling, really. So interviewing people who've made the move, kind of understanding where they came from, what was it that led them to relocate, what are some of the challenges. But a key part of what we want to do, just because it's like my area of interest and my friend Carly's expertise, is focusing a lot on the sort of groundwork that you need to do. Because I know I've experienced it, like, let's just get the hell out of here and move somewhere else. But that thing of making sure that you're well in yourself and that you're clear on what it is that you really think you're going to be achieving by moving before you relocate, that's something that's super important to us and that we're really passionate about.
Wow. So tell me, what was it that made you want to go and start up a business in Grenada and want to really showcase the Caribbean?
Um, I don't know. It's funny because, like, as a kid, I hated the Caribbean. I hated being from Grenada. I was like, no one knows where it is, and it's like, yeah, it just wasn't cool. I wanted to be from like Brazil or somewhere glamorous. So I never would have thought that I would end up um, having like a strong pullback. But I think, like, after my son was born, I did my master's in international development. And my areas of specialism was African government and politics, when I loved like learning more about the politics of the continent. Um, but I went back to Grenada in, I think it must have been 2012. And there was a really rare spate of deaths related to domestic violence.
Mm.
And started, like, my degree was violence, conflict, and development. Having studied how patterns of violence can emerge and what are the underlying causes, that kind of joining the dots thing of like, listen, like, I'm thinking I want to like go off and save Africa in a really like disgusting neo-colonialist way, when actually the knowledge and understanding that I have could be a benefit here, in an island that I'm from that most people think is actually in Spain. Um, so yeah, just knowing that there was a need for things to be done differently if Grenada wasn't going to go down a route in which violence and lack of employment led to situations that were far from ideal. And also just like the land, the greenery, the nature, like that just, it nourishes me so much. And I think I went from being this really disinterested kid to an obnoxious teenager and 20-year-old who thought everything was in Europe, to understanding that
Mm.
people value that community and land and not having to wear a jacket, that means a lot to me. And I think it took me a long time to get there. I guess like I'm a slow learner. But once that seed had been sown, to find a way to be based there more often. And the idea was to create a company that could convert some of their agricultural waste into products that could be sold overseas. So I started a company called Bud and Root that initially was making skincare in the same way that everyone was doing like 10 years ago. But we evolved into a tea company. So what we do, we work with the Grenada Chocolate Company, and source cacao from them and use that as a base for herbal teas, which we then sell over here. And the idea is that by working with farmers and ideally creating employment for unemployed youth, that's a way to kind of create an impact there.
That is amazing. Oh my goodness. That is fantastic. Let me go to our first question, which I think will help kick us off further in our discussion. The Everyday Catwalk asks, can we please discuss moving to the Caribbean with a young child? We are debating between Spain and the Caribbean. Oh, that's so funny. This is a perfect conversation for you. Between Spain and the Caribbean, our issue is making sure she's able to see people that look like her. Oh, very, very important. Okay, so Zoe, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I mean, there's so many factors, but if it's looking people that look like her, it's got to be the Caribbean, right? I don't know. I mean, you can defend your corner,
Well,
but
yeah. No, you go ahead and I'll pipe in.
yeah, I think for me as well, that's a large part of why I want to move to the Caribbean, is because for my kids. My kids are like their dad is of European and American descent, and I kind of feel like his culture is just on tap. Like anytime they turn on the TV, they see American culture. They live in Europe, and it's very European. So for them to be like really rooted in their Caribbeanness and their Grenadianness, like that's like a core life value that I think will really enhance who they are as people. And to live in a country where they're the majority. Like I didn't have that growing up. I grew up I went to like a white school, I went to a white university, I worked in white spaces. So I'm very good at navigating between like, what's the word? Spaces, let's just call it that. But I think that it can take a toll on you. And it can shape the way that you see yourself, and it can shape what you think are your options when you see yourself as a minority. So to grow up in a space where you understand that actually people of color, Black people are the majority in the world and white people are the minority, I think to me, that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you want your child to grow up in a brown space, black or brown space, I'm not sure if Spain will be the place. I think Madrid has a pretty vibrant black community, but it's interesting because I think in the very first episode of my podcast, I actually have my friend Nayana, when she was working here in Spain, now she's in the Netherlands. She actually speaks to like the Black Spanish experience because she was a teacher out in Lyon, and she was teaching at a school where there was like only like one Black girl in her class, and she really lays out the dynamics in that kind of way. So if you haven't actually listened to that episode, I would say listen to that because I think that explains it better. But if you want your child to grow up in a Black or brown space, or in a space in which their Blackness will be affirmed, I would definitely say the Caribbean. Because Spain is a white country. It's white. It's white. There are, ethnic minorities who are second generation and even third generation. Does the Spanish identity and like envelope everyone into that? In my opinion, not so much, not like a UK or American identity where they're like, okay, you're British, you're American. To me, the Spanish don't really get down like that. So I would probably say Caribbean, if just based off of that. But let's talk more about moving to the Caribbean. I know there's a lot of visas being proposed or different options. Can you like speak to that? Maybe like the Barbados and wherever else they're opening it up to.
Yeah, so like I think the more publicity that the Barbados stamp gets, the more other islands like, aha, idea, let's see if we can copy that. But I think at the moment there are four that I know of. One which is Barbados, Bermuda has one, Antigua and Barbuda also have their system, and the Cayman Islands have also just announced they're calling it a global citizen concierge program, which gives you an idea as to how much it costs. Um, but yeah, there's lots going on. And I think given that all of the islands are so tourism dependent, having to find innovative ways to still bring people to their states amidst a pandemic, it's, yeah, attracting digital nomads and people who can just work overseas for a while is kind of a no-brainer. I think the fees for the visas vary in cost. So, for example, at the top of the range, the Cayman Islands program, you have to earn a minimum of 100,000 US dollars a year, which is not an insignificant amount. At the lower end of the scale, Bermuda also have a 12-month visa program that costs $263, which is a lot less money. But I guess the other thing we kind of need to be honest about is like none of these islands are cheap to live on. I mean, I guess it depends where you're coming from, but yeah, that's kind of also a thing to factor into any decision that you make. I don't know. Do you have experience of like, do you go to Trinidad often? What's your experience on like the priciness out there?
I don't go to Trinidad often, but I've been to Trinidad and a couple of other Caribbean islands, and I don't think it's cheap at all. But I think that's such like a misconception about moving abroad. I think a lot of people think just moving outside of like the UK or United States is like automatically cheaper, and that's not always the case.
No, no.
There's imports, there are other kinds of taxes, and if it is a tourist destination, accommodation, especially accommodation to what you may be used to, can be more expensive. But also, I was wondering if you could speak to, we're saying Caribbean in general, but the Caribbean is not a monolith at all. I think we all know
Right.
that here. And I'm wondering if you could speak to not only the varying cultures in the Caribbean, but maybe the different types or different what am I trying to say? The different countries, maybe strong suits. So if you're looking to be a digital nomad, or if you're looking to raise a family or something like, are there different countries known for different things?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what you're looking for, like what it is that you want to get from the destination that you're in. I think in terms of education, if you've got a kid, all of the islands have pretty good primary and secondary education. All of the islands will have private schools that generally are going to be way more affordable than they are in the UK and the US. So that's a factor. But in terms of what you do for work, if you want to start a business, I think there's like a massive difference in what you'll experience on different islands. So, for example, in Jamaica and Trinidad, your options of like establishing a business that can operate at scale and has a wider degree of options in terms of export and networking with like established significantly sized businesses, like those are the islands I would look to head to. If tourism is, if you want to be in the tourist market, assuming that things ever return to a scale that makes any sense, then Barbados, St. Lucia, Antigua are really interesting destinations. I think for me, Grenada, places like Grenada, I think quality of life is the best place, a best selling point for Grenada. Um, in terms of establishing a business, I mean, there's a medical school there, so serving the needs of a medical school could make sense. But yeah, logically, other than quality of life, Grenada probably wouldn't be the first island that I would suggest to someone to move to, just because, yeah, it's quite different. It's quite special in good ways and bad ways. Um, but yeah, that's what I would say.
So tell me about your process of getting Grenadian citizenship, because you have Grenadian citizenship because
Yeah.
of your parents. My dad is Trinidadian. I don't know if he still holds a Trinidadian passport, which is something I should ask him about. But a lot of people have Caribbean heritage. And maybe let's talk about getting residency through or citizenship through your heritage, if it's possible.
Yeah, so that varies a lot from island to island, and the fees vary significantly too. Grenada is the most expensive. Um, but yeah, it really varies. So I think for the most part, I'm just looking at this list that I have. Um, for the most part, it can be gained either through parents or grandparents. Um, it's really interesting going through it because some of the islands just have like this really discriminatory policy whereby if your father is originally from the island, you're automatically allowed to get a passport. But if your mother is, you aren't. It's really like this, really, yeah,
Mm.
worth looking into. I think Barbuda or no, Bahamas is one of the islands that won't acknowledge illegitimate children. Like it's really antiquated. Um, but yeah, for the most part, you can apply either through your grandparents or your parents. For me, my dad didn't have a Grenadian passport. His had expired for like 20 years or something. Um, but all I needed to do was to get his birth certificate and my birth certificate, and that was enough to get it processed. And I got it like within 3 days. It was amazing.
Mm.
I applied for it while I was in Grenada. Um, and yeah, so I maybe about 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a friend who lives in New York, whose mother is Grenadian. And she said, "Listen, the situation here, I just need options. Like, what do I need to do to apply for citizenship?" And I said, "Well, if your mother is Grenadian, then you can just automatically apply for a passport and citizenship at the same time through her." So it's definitely worth giving your local embassy if you're in the US or Canada, or High Commission if you're in the UK, a call and seeing what the options are in terms of applying for citizenship that way. And the good thing about the Caribbean is that if the island that you hold citizenship is a member of a CARICOM state, then that automatically gives you the right to apply for jobs within other neighboring islands. Like there is a process.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't just rock up and say, hey, but definitely it fast tracks you. And there's also a process whereby you can apply as a self-employed person as well. I haven't fully drilled down into the details, But yeah, that it's a really handy passport to have.
Wow, wow, wow. All right. So everyone keep on dropping your questions in the comments, things like that. But I wanted to ask about conscious relocation. Because I think that this is one, it's good to be conscious in everything that we do and intentional in everything that we do. But I think especially the climate globally across the diaspora. I mean, everywhere from in the UK, in the United States, in Nigeria, in the Congo, everybody's black is feeling a lot of tension. We're all like very much on edge, and people are looking to make moves and things like that. I was wondering if you could speak to your concept of conscious relocation, and you have a whole project based on that.
Yeah, I do. The project is yeah, it's exciting. I'm still not fully clear as to what it's going to evolve into, but I think it's just based on my experiences of moving to different places and having different expectations as to what I thought moving was going to achieve, and actually just realizing that, I have to contextualize. I'm Black British, so
Mm.
the level of violence that I'm facing differs to people moving from the US. So I just want to kind of caveat what I'm going to say. Um, but the difference that being in a different destination will make to my life, if I'm not clear as to who I am and what I need to do to make myself happy and balanced and fulfilled. And in addition, being clear as to how I serve out my purpose in my desired destination, like being clear on those two things to me are like really fundamental, because I think otherwise you can end up in a position where you just move and move and move and hope that like this thing will make you happy, or this place will make you happier, or more sun, or cheaper electricity, or better food, when actually like you just need to do the inner work in yourself and the outer work in connecting to community and understanding how often we can use our privilege as people who've moved from developed countries to serve a purpose in the destination that you happen to be in. So it's kind of like a realization that I've come to quite painfully in some ways. Um, it's yeah, it's definitely been a process, and I just feel it's quite it would be sad to have people. I mean, I guess it would be sad, but I guess in some ways it's necessary. But it would be sad to have people pack up their lives and move to a destination and then be unhappy without realizing that actually there's things that you can do internally to shift that. And I think I was saying to you, one of the reasons I liked your site so much is that there's so much of the kind of travel noir, like let's take an amazing picture on Instagram and like let's be swinging, and like that's really not it. That's really, really not it. I mean, it might be it for a week, but like a month later, 6 months later, 12 months later, you need more than that to make you fulfilled. And yeah, so that's kind of that's what the motivation for that project is about. And I think it's I'm a writer, so I'm sort of writing through unpicking what the building blocks of that might look like. I'm been having chats with people who are thinking about moving, so it's kind of like setting up a sort of consulting space on that as well. Like, I'm definitely not a coach. I'm not a coach. I'm not a coach. But yeah, just having conversations with people and getting them to like really root into who they are, what they need to put in place to ensure that they're balanced and grounded, and also checking their privilege. Like, it's really, I guess it's my international development background, but I really just feel that there's something kind of inexcusable to move to somewhere where your accent gets you access, or your education gets you access, and not really do anything to give back. Like, that doesn't sit well with me. Rant, rant,
Yeah.
rant.
No, I completely agree. I think that I always tell people the first thing you need to do before you move anywhere is need a journal. You need a
Mm,
journal. What are the things going on in my life, in my environment that I do not like or I would like to see changed? And then do a deep dive to see how much of that is environmental and how much is that just you as a person and being really real because wherever you go, you take yourself. And
yeah.
as you said, you pack up and you move to Colombia and you're like, Colombia sucks. And Colombia's like, no, we were just here minding our own business, or, Spain sucks or whatever, because you haven't done the necessary inner work. And also because you're moving in an energy of this place is going to solve me, be my balm. You guys need to fix me, give me, give me. And that's not it. It's just
No.
not it. We must move in energy of community, of I'm going to intentionally create community. Maybe this may not be it, but I will pivot and I can move on. But you're not going just in that kind of taking energy. It has to be reciprocal. And I think I'll just speak to being Black American. We must check our privilege because so often we don't feel American or feel the privilege of Americanness until we leave the United States. And some people, like myself, are highly uncomfortable. I'm like, is this how it is? I'm just supposed to walk around and see, discrimination and, whatever. And I'm just be like, well, I'm American, so whatever. Like,
Right.
that doesn't work for me. And there's other people who like lean into it. They're just like, whatever, I'm gonna lean into this because America sucks. And it's like we have to be intentional because moving abroad is not the cure all, but it can be the opening, it can be the gateway to give you the space and the environment to cultivate a life well lived for you. And I just resonate so much with that. And I cannot wait to see where your project goes with that. But let me hit some of these questions because people have been asking questions. So,
Mm.
okay, the everyday catwalk. Hey, can we discuss food in the Caribbean? I've heard that most islands are importing everything from the US. One of the reasons that we're moving is better access to organic, real food. Hmm.
Love these questions. Yeah. Like shopping in the Caribbean can be ridiculously expensive, but it's only ridiculously expensive if you eat everything you think you would buy back home. Like
Mm.
imports are crazy. I think Grenada imports something like 80% of its meat, maybe 90%, but a ridiculously high amount of meat is imported. I remember once I went to buy a plum and it was like $6 US. No, six? Yeah, $6
For
US. And
one?
I'm like, all right, one plum. I was like, I'm putting that back. I love plums, but not that much. Um, but stupid me, why am I buying plums when I can eat mangoes? Passion
Yes.
fruits, pawpaw. Like, yeah, I think it depends which island you're moving to, but generally, most Caribbean islands have an agricultural background or an agricultural history. They were places where people grew sugarcane or cocoa or whatever. Um, and quite often you'll find with the house that you're renting or buying is that it will come with a plot of land. Um, so I think what the pandemic has made people do is shift more to backyard gardening. And the land, I mean, these are generally volcanic islands, so the land is generally super fertile. So there's absolutely no reason why you can't just grow what you need. Or even if you want to grow plantains and sweet potatoes and your neighbor's growing, I don't know, pak choy and yam, you can swap. And I think when you're outside of the capital, like if you're a little bit more in the country, that sort of neighborliness and like exchange is something that is definitely a possibility and something that really draws me as well, because that way to kind of connect over food and growing and nature is just, it doesn't happen here. I'm looking out my window imagining if there was food growing. It's, yeah, that doesn't happen so much in the UK, especially in like cities or suburban areas. Um, so yes, to answer your question, a lot of food is imported. If you want to eat primarily imported foods, your shopping bill is going to be scary. You're pretty much going to get angry and irritated every time you go to the supermarket because you'll be comparing what you've just paid for what you would have paid back home, which will drive you mad. So you could just like step away from the supermarket or maybe just go once a month and grow some stuff or buy things that local people have grown locally. That's what I would highly, highly recommend. And buy some seeds. You're supposed to sign and declare when you go into the island. You don't always have to do that. Don't arrest me. But yeah, grow your own.
I think it'd be amazing if I could grow my own plantain and mango and passion fruit.
Right?
Oh my goodness. That I would never leave. I know that for sure. Next question. I would love to hear more about Zoe's experience with her kids in Grenada. Like, how are the schools? How do the kids like the island access to quality healthcare?
Okay, so healthcare is difficult for me because I'm British
Mm.
and we have free healthcare. So yeah, it's really interesting understanding how to like engage with people's questions about healthcare because like I've never known not having free access to healthcare or like I've never known, is it Medicare, Medicaid?
Oh, for the United States? Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
have Medicare, Medicaid, all the yeah. Hmm.
yeah. So Grenada, Grenada, there is access to healthcare. There's access to, I mean, I don't pay for it because I'm a citizen. But there's a free health service in Grenada. You may have to pay to access it if you don't have citizenship, but whatever it is, it's not going to be anything um, of the levels that you pay in the US. The quality is pretty good. I got bitten by a dog when I was out there last time, and I had to go to the local health station to get seen by a nurse. They were great. Like it didn't have air conditioning, but they did what they needed to do, and it was perfect for me. Um, so yeah, access to decent healthcare is good. I think in the case of like a really awful situation happening or getting like a disease that needs specialist attention, quite often you will have to go off the island. So ensuring, I think there are some medical companies offer packages where in the case of an emergency or in the case of a life-threatening illness, you can actually be airlifted off the island to, I think you can choose between Trinidad, Barbados, the UK or the US.
Mm.
So that's something that you can consider as well. Um, but in terms of schooling and education, um, that is something that I am grappling with. I mean, I think all of these questions just are so personal. It depends on what you're looking for. So in terms of quality education, where kids are kind of educated to a very high standard. They like making sure that they have a full range of qualifications that they're getting. The Caribbean is an excellent place for that sort of discipline and drive, I believe. Um, my challenge is if you're looking for something a little more fluid and less instructional and sort of learning by rote, the options are, at least in Grenada, the options are more limited. The options are very limited. But there might be one school that I'm looking at that has a different setup. Also, I'm not at all religious, and a lot of the schools are very, very religious. The school that my son attended was a Lutheran school. At the time, the headmistress wasn't super religious, so that kind of flowed well. But yeah, my son did come home like asking like really niche questions about Jesus and God, which is great. I mean, I think it's a good age to be open up to conversations about spirituality in the world. But yeah, that's that's a thing you might have to grapple with if you're not Christian. Like, say, if you're Muslim, you know, that's a thing you might have to grapple with. Um, and some of the schools do smack children,
Mm.
which is also a thing. So it's that's a very like random. There's lots to grapple with in that, but it depends what you're looking for. Quality education will be no problem at all, but sorry, the specifics of it, you might need to check out a few schools to kind of get a sense of what you're looking for. And all the schools that I've spoken about are private schools as well. Like I think that public schools are very good as well. So yeah, there's a lot of options there.
Okay. All right, I just want to tell everyone, I think we have about 15 minutes left of the live, and then apparently IG will kick us off. So if you have questions, definitely put them in the comments and we will get to them. Let me go on to the next one. BK Duchess of Success says, of all the topics we've covered here, will there be a website where we can reference back for information and resources?
Yeah, so there's two websites because I like building websites. There is the Exodus Collective, which is theexodus.co. And that's the space that's sort of a hub, a community based around a forum where you can connect with people who are looking to move to other islands and ask questions directly there. It's very new, so there's not a lot of content there at the moment, but I'll definitely recommend signing up. And in terms of the conscious relocation process, and the sort of questions you want to be asking yourself and the processes that you want to be putting in place prior to your move, you can find that over at consciousrelocation.com. Duchess, can you give me a shout out if there are specific bits of information and resources that you're looking for? And I can tell you where you might be able to find them. One of the things I'm actually putting together are the details of applying for citizenship visas and residency, so people can get like an island by island breakdown of what each. Yeah,
that'll be amazing, and I will be hitting you up for that because I'm thinking about it. If I could get this Trinidadian passport, I'm gonna get one.
I can see you. I can see you on a beach. I can see that working for you.
You know, and I think that's what's also so very interesting about, particularly if you're from, the Caribbean and going back to the Caribbean, going back to your roots. It's very powerful. I went back to Trinidad without actually my family, without my immediate family, because I have family all over the island. And then, as you know, you just find out like you're related to everyone on the island, like everyone's your cousin. But it's a very, very powerful experience. Trinidad is calling me, so I will have to go back soon. Well, I don't know, 2022, I guess. I don't know. Let us go on. BK Duchess. Oh, she's Trini. Her family are both sides are from Trinidad. However, crime is skyrocketing. Oh, it is extremely high and very lethal and graphic what they show on the television too. I'm like, I don't think I needed to see the entire crime, but okay. And she's considering another island. And then she also says, how does one go about researching relocation to island that encompasses everything one wants, like low crime, affordability, cost of living, education, also as a single person, dating and social life? Oh, BK Duchess, you want it all. And I like it because you deserve it all. You deserve it all. We deserve it all. Zoe, how do we even go about this? Like, how do we do this?
Right. So there are a few sites that you can look at that will give you the ability to compare crime, affordability, cost of living. I don't know about education. But yeah, there are a few off the top of my head. It has slipped my mind, but I basically just pulled a lot of that data and started putting it together in one long list. So at some point that will be within a week, that will be on the conscious relocation site. But just have a Google, if you just Google comparison international cost of living, the data is actually really good. And I think it's sort of crowdsourced. So people will be like, oh, this is what I paid for a cup of coffee, or this is how much a pint of milk costs. So having checked it out, the figures do look very look valid. In terms of education, I don't know what sort of education are you looking at? Social life. I mean, I think social life. What would I do if I didn't come from Grenada? I think just reaching out to people. I think there's so many people who have moved back, who are kind of sharing their experiences. Just like dropping them a message on IG and kind of saying, hey, like, what's it like? What's the social situation like? I think doing that prep beforehand can give you a really good sense of like what sort of scene you might want to be into. Are you actually going to find the activities that you want on the island? So yeah, reaching out to people, following what we're doing on the Exodus Collective. I think we just published an interview with a really amazing creative director who's based in Trinidad. Next week, yeah, she's amazing. Next week, we have an interview with a friend of mine who's moved back to Jamaica, where she's an author, and her experience is just so beautiful. So yeah, what we're trying to do is kind of tell those stories, so those nitty gritty details, you can find them out from real life people. And dating, that's another episode. um, yeah, I don't know what to say on that one. I in the Caribbean.
That's what's hard. I'm like, I know of Caribbean stereotypes, but I don't want to perpetuate stereotypes. Not
Right.
here.
And to find dating, I mean, yeah, you can have access to people, whether you call it dating or not is something else. But I know I've got lots of friends who have wonderful Caribbean partners, and my dad is a Caribbean man, and he's wonderful. So that's all I'll say for now.
Yeah. And, I would say try out Facebook. There's always, expats in whatever place, or if you're American, you can always look up African Americans in certain places. You can maybe get the down low for dating and social life that way until you get integrated into the community and finding things that are interesting to you. But dating, that's the question I always ask my podcast, and I always get, I would say 90% the women like make a deep sigh they have to cut out of the podcast, and then they have this like a cringe response. So it's like it's hard out. I mean, it's hard everywhere, I think. That's just how it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I was seeing a guy from Grenada for a while, and like it's different. I think you won't have problem finding anyone. Finding someone that you want to keep might be a longer process, but if you're single and you just like, I mean, I think Caribbean men are like really flattering, aren't they? They've got the chat and they're like really, they don't need to go to the gym because they're just like outside eating healthy food. So it's nice um, in a way. So yeah,
Yeah, they
it's
got the sauce, but
right.
they may have too much sauce and makes them like slippery kind of figures. I don't know.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm gonna let you do the talking. I'm trying to be diplomatic, and I can't. So yeah,
She also says about work and career, question mark. So BK Duchess, tell us what kind of work or career you're looking for. Are you looking to start your own business? Are you looking to be employed locally in the Caribbean? And if so, what is your industry? What is your niche? Because I think that would help. My mother's from Barbados. Hey, Audrina. Who else? University. So BK Duchess wants information about higher education and like getting another master's. I'm thinking of changing to studying law and also Caribbean studies. Okay, cool.
nice. Yeah, I think the University of the West Indies has master's program in Caribbean studies in Trinidad. Um, And the costs, and from what I remember, the costs of weight not as high at all as compared to the US. And I think UE is like a really well-regarded university. Yeah, university. And I think if you're wanting to study Caribbean studies, like where better to do it than in the Caribbean? Um, that'd be cool. Move to Trinidad, do your master's. Yeah. And
Uh,
also at
uh,
UE, you'll be around international students, so you'll have options in terms of men or women. There you go.
yeah, and I think that's probably one of the easiest ways to get integrated into a community is if you're going to university, you have your built-in community. You obviously gonna have somebody who are local who can bring you in, so that could be really interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's out. BK Duchess, message me for more. Anyone message me if you want more.
Okay. The everyday catwalk, does the beach life get boring? My husband is a little concerned that the slow pace of life might get boring after a few months. Mm.
Beach life get boring. I think beach life can get boring, but there's so much more to the Caribbean than the beach. You have beaches, you have mountains, you have rivers, you have hiking groups, you have people, like real life people. Yeah, going to the beach every day, I could never get bored of it, but it can get repetitive. But there's so much more to the Caribbean than the beach. I think some tourist boards don't do a great job of selling what their countries have to offer. But yeah, once you're there, you'll meet people, you'll have like cook-ups, you'll have hashes where you go off and explore undiscovered parts of the island. Like, yeah, it's a lot more than beach.
All right, BK Duchess is. Oh wait, first she says, Zoe, if you don't mind, I'll have to speak to you personally because I have specific issues. All right, and then she also says she's referring to being employed locally or move with a job, maybe a virtual job. But yes, if we can talk about getting employment locally versus moving with a job.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely happy to do that. I've been self-employed probably for like the past 11 years. So like employment isn't my area of expertise, but I can definitely have a chat. And if I can point you in the direction of someone who'll be better qualified than me, then I'd happily do that.
Awesome, awesome. And I think something for everyone to think about um, when you're thinking about moving abroad and working locally, I think it's something that you guys can do now is you can start researching the economy, seeing how strong the economy is, what is the average salary, and see if that really works for you because you may have still bills in your home country that you've got to pay. Um, and you also have the expense of living where you are living now. So getting comfortable with whatever your number is and seeing if the average local salary even makes sense for you, seeing what the sectors that are strongest in that new country, see if that makes sense. And if you have a niche like expertise, see if they're looking for it. I mean, you could be an engineer, but maybe they're looking for a very specific engineer looking for that as well. And you can always, I always tell people, research that beforehand, try to make connections beforehand. If you have a trade association, professional or association, there's definitely going to be one for the Caribbean region. Reach out and start networking and start pitching yourself. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah,
Because you may be going
definitely.
up against local hires. Depending on your visa, you may be able to work, you may not be able to work. So that's just what I'm going to say off the top. Um, and
Yeah.
okay, so we're
One
running.
thing to
Go
add
ahead.
to that is talk to your family. Unfortunately, in the Caribbean, getting jobs is a lot about who you know. Like nepotism is like at ridiculous levels. So if you have an idea of what sector you want to be in and you have family that are there, start talking to them because they might know someone who knows someone. Because yeah, sadly for employment, often that's the way it seems to go.
Yeah, it is. It's all about who you know. It's all about whose cousin you are, whose granddaughter you are. and,
Yeah.
and, and that is it. Really quickly before we get kicked off, where can everyone find you and any kind of last words?
So you can find me at Zoe Lee Smith on Instagram. I'm going to start using Instagram more often. You can check me out at consciousrelocation.com or at theexodus.co. And next week we'll be hosting a live event with a woman who's moved from the US to Grenada and is actually setting up an intentional community for
Mm-hmm.
folks who want to move back. Tips, research, be clear on what you want and put in place the steps. Turn it from a vision to something that you're actually working towards, but go for it. Leave if you can.
I agree. I'm sorry. My phone is starting to wobble again, and that's just what this is all about. Unfortunately,
Cool.
this is the jankiest IG live. But Zoe, you have been so helpful. This has been such a great conversation, and I want to thank everyone who stopped by. You guys have really brought the questions. Thank you, BK Duchess of Success, for just bringing the questions, engagement. I love it. Fat Nice One, love it. The Everyday Catwalk. Who else was talking? Audrina. Thank you guys so much for just engaging and sticking around. I appreciate it. If you guys are interested in seeing something else on the IG channel, let me know. If you have any other questions about moving abroad, if you have specific questions about countries or maybe something in particular, let me know and I can reach out to some of the amazing women that are now in my network and bring them on IG. All right. So thank you guys so much. Thank you again, Zoe. And
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun.
oh, thank you. Well, thank you for rocking with me because I was like, I don't know about IG. I don't know about it. But
You knew that.
all right, everyone. Until next time. Bye.
See you. Bye.